Good day, everyone, and welcome to another episode of CP4SA. Today we'll be talking entrepreneurship, agriculture, and a little bit on education. I'm joined by a very special guest, Palesa.
Hi everyone.
Hey Palesa, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
It's been a while.
Yes, it has been a while.
I guess for those that don't know, you and I went to university together, studied geology together.
Yeah.
So it's really exciting to be able to reconnect with you, to speak about a career that's so far outside what I do.
Yeah.
I always find that very interesting.
Very cool. You didn't add that you were copying from me, or I was copying from you. But it was a symbiotic relationship.
Yes, it worked the way. Well, we both here.
Yeah. Please don't hide your work from other people.
But I think first and foremost, for the people that don't know you at home, who is Palesa Motaung?
Okay, Alyssa is she's a girl or a woman that loves agriculture, that loves research, and that loves education. I love being in a team. I love teamwork, and so in the past few years, I've consistently been in different agri-tech startups. So that's the element of the teamwork, element of entrepreneurship, and element of agriculture. Yeah, I've been volunteering or working in those type of situations on the side. She's a girl that loves agriculture. Let me say that.
Yeah. And I suppose, educationally speaking, what's the journey you've taken to get here?
Okay, so as I was telling you earlier, I wanted to be an environmental engineer. I don't even know if that still exists, but my teacher told us about that profession because when I went to high school in Poch, there's a river that runs through it, the Moe River, or Moe Rivier, and they were building a new mall in the area, and she was like, they're disturbing so many ecosystems. And I remember she spoke about the otters, Yeah, my teacher was a tree hugger. She also used to make us hug trees, and she's like, they're gonna disturb this precious ecosystem, and she's like, the environmental engineer was supposed to, with the EIA, was not supposed to sign this off, because obviously you have to weigh the options of, is the economic benefit, does it outweigh the environmental impact? And she's like, there's a lot of corruption. Sometimes the engineer will sign it off when they're not supposed to. So it's like, okay, that's interesting. I like the fact that there's the sciencey part of it, but it's also conservation and part of economics. So I went to tax and I tried to I did geology. But towards the end, one of the factors was when I changed from after I finished my degree, when I went to honors, because we have to do honors, right, when you do geology. The first reason was I want to be in resource conservation, and geology seems like it's exploitative, right? And I say seems because it was just me. I'd never really been in the industry. But another thing was I've forgotten. When you enter a lot of degrees in first year, they're like, there's so much jobs. Then I think towards the end, one or two of the lecturers had started saying, it's getting more competitive, this industry is getting saturated, it's no longer even honors, you now need your masters, So I was like, okay, it's not even that, seemingly it's not that in demand anymore. So that was another little reason, I think, that I changed honors. I decided not to do geology. I went to environmental soil science. Yeah.
Environmental soil science.
Yes.
So what can you tell us about that?
Okay. So and it's quite interesting. I'm learning this journey now because my master's I did agricultural soil science, and I kept calling it environmental soil science in the beginning, and my supervisor was like, no, this is agricultural. So why I'm bringing that up is environmental soil science it was a nice bridge from geology because you do soil mechanics and stuff. Environmental soil science is you more holistically studying the physical and chemical properties of the soil for application in any industry where soil will be used. So even maybe for surveying, for construction, for agriculture, but it's just you literally knowing the ins and outs of how soil as a medium behaves chemically, physically, nutrient-wise for agriculture and so forth. So that was quite cool because I still got to do some physics, do some chemistry, biophysics. That was quite interesting. Interaction of, like air with plants, and just that was quite interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, I think one thing which I've learned by, following your journey, particularly on LinkedIn, I guess you've brought the science into agriculture, because I think you're always told about, do agriculture, get into it. But I think it's only as I get older and as I watch, my peers get into it, that there's such a technical component to it. You don't just wake up a farmer, but there's actually, work that you do to become a much better individual at understanding how to treat the soil that you're planting.
100%, and a lot of farmers are waking up to it, primarily because of how much the soil has been degraded, how much their margins are shrinking, right? Because we have all, and farmers, but all of us, can't just blame farmers, have taken soil for granted. So now they're waking up that, okay, one of my favorite sayings is, the soil is home to 25% of all living creatures on this planet. You'd never say that, just because they're microbes and stuff, they're still living creatures, and that's their home. And the way we farm currently is destroying their home. And when you destroy them, the soil also won't give back to you. It's a give and take. So a lot of farmers are having to learn about microbial populations. That's soil biology. They have to have a bit of understanding. Tillage, like turning the soil, that's physically altering the soil. That's physics of soil. They have to start understanding that chemistry, fertilizers, pesticides, that's a crisis in agriculture. And I know a lot of farmers, they'll feel attacked, and as I said, I don't want to attack farmers, but at some point we need to start like calling out these industries so that we can, move away from some of these destructive practices. So 100% it's science, but science is mimicry of nature, so it is science, but you must replicate or duplicate or copy what nature does, because obviously nature is the best scientist.
Well, interesting. I think as you speak, I can't help but be taken back to my childhood, where I grew up, and how the village that we grew up in, subsistence farming was the way we did it. I just wonder now, is there anything that's being done with our local farmers? And by local farmers, I'm speaking more around, my grandmother, who goes and plants in her yard or out in the field, and everyone else who relies on that for consistent feeding. Is there anything that gets done to educate people like that around, this is the approach you should be taking to preserve the soil?
I don't think so. I don't think a lot is being done, and it also depends on who, if there is a program, who it's targeting, because obviously there's a difference between a subsistence and a small-scale farmer. A lot of people say it's semantics, but it's true. Like, there are some people who are planting just for subsistence, right? Maybe some of them want to commercialize slightly, so have surplus and sell to supplement household income, right? Which would be ideal. Maybe most people want that, but I don't feel like there's enough education. Let's go back to subsistence farmers, because obviously in our journey, and this is why I also am passionate about Black empowerment, in our journey as Africans, because also we passed down knowledge orally, and then we had big disruptions in our culture, colonialism, apartheid, whatever knowledge we had built up on taking care of the land and the soil and resources was interrupted and lost. Maybe it's not completely lost, but we need to find it and document it. So most farmers have adopted how the West came initially in terms of farming, intensively farming, even the small-scale farmers. And it's quite tricky, because they'll say, African farmers aren't using inputs, pesticides, herbicides, and that's why the yields are low. True, but at the same time, it's also great that they're not, but it's also not good that their yields are low. But they've adopted some of turning the soil, using, the seeds, the hybrids that they've given them. So they they're using inputs designed for commercial systems in small scale systems, and those inputs aren't designed for that, first of all. And then obviously they do lack education on ideal production. So a simple thing that I've started seeing, Zamo has been teaching me, plants like tomato and peppers, right? It flowers while it's still quite small, right? The pepper or the tomato comes out. You're supposed to deflower it, you're supposed to cut those fruits off. Because if you don't, the fruits are taking up a lot of energy, and the plant stays short, right? So if you deflower, the plant can grow big, and then you can harvest from the same plant maybe 6 times, 4 or 6 times. If you don't deflower, you're gonna only harvest twice. So because the plant is now not big enough to sustain that fruit, and on top of that, it's close to the ground. So there's also just technical knowledge like that they don't know, you know. So are there programs going? I mean, I know there's a lot of like input support, especially from government. They'll give them seeds every year, they'll give them fertilizer, and extension officers will come in now and again, but it's not consistent, and they're not teaching them about the business side, like if they're going to commercialize. So a lot more can be done, and I think more than us waiting for government, or I think we should target the youth in those households. Yeah.
Well, look, I think, you know, because there's so many more facets to who you are as a person, I'll ask just one more question around agriculture.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's got to do with, so we've always been told that, you know, if you want to be successful, go into agriculture in South Africa.
Yeah.
Does that statement still hold true for you?
100%, especially if you have a long-term like vision. If you're not like, first of all, just being a farmer itself, it's not a short-term thing. So whether you go into agriculture as a primary producer, or maybe how I am in it, or any other way, agri-tech, you have to have, it's the long game, 100%. That's the type of industry it is. But in the long game, the way the world is moving, agriculture, for me, it's always been the most important industry, but it's going to become the most important industry. We're headed to a world with 10 billion. Already with 7, we can't feed 1 billion of them. Then there's also big issues of food waste. Yeah, some girl said agriculture is the only industry. Yeah, obviously I'm gonna agree with her. So I really believe, just one story just to show the profitability of agriculture, but it's very risky. So don't just, it's not a child's play. It's highly risky. You can lose a lot of money often. But just the interesting thing I learned recently, there's a period of 6 weeks globally where only South Africa can produce cherries. Oh, I also bought some cherries, yeah, because since I learned that, I'm like, oh, cherries are cool. But there's a period in the whole world for 6 weeks where only South Africa can supply cherries. And I don't know what the price is before, but the price shoots up to about 80,000 per ton. And you could harvest 10 tons per hectare. So you could make 800,000 from a hectare of planting cherries. And with AgriCool, I've learned a lot about seasonality. And if you're lucky, if you plant 2 weeks or a week before everyone else, the 2 weeks where you've harvested and you're the only one in the market, you make a killing. And that cherry thing is an example. I mean, imagine we're the only people in the whole world. So it means for that 6 weeks period, the whole world is probably sourcing from you. Yeah. Unless maybe they're growing under tunnels or whatever. But yeah, you need to do your research, but it's a lucrative industry.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot. And I suppose, I mean, just this alone could be an episode in its own, because, you know, I think in future, I want us to speak about also, you know, how much we import versus what we have.
100%.
Because I think that's also another contestable point. But I think for now, I mean, you've mentioned that you're also into teaching quite a bit.
Yes.
So do you want to tell us a bit more about
that?
Oh
my gosh, I love teaching. I started teaching in varsity, like 2nd or 3rd year, for extra income. So I was tutoring one of the companies I tutored for, after a few months, they actually made me manager. But I was still mainly just a tutor. And then when I finished university, finished my honors, I came back home and I couldn't find a job. You know that you don't have experience, you know, that vicious cycle, that catch-22. So I put up posters here, around here, and I got like 3 clients. I was charging like 80 Rand an hour, and this is quite a small township, so I can walk back and forth. So that's when, so I had been tutoring for other agencies, but I never gave it a name, but now I call it Palesa's Mobile Township. What? Palesa's Mobile Tutoring Services.
Yeah.
Because I think it was quite a value proposition, because I come to your home, I am a scientist, you know, I have an honors degree, I have teaching experience, and I'm good with kids. So a lot of the moms were like, I can't believe this service is in my neighborhood. And that really resonated with me. So that happened, and then few weeks in, a teacher from one of the local schools saw my poster and they needed someone to do winter school maths. So that's how I started. Then I did the winter school at that school, and then there was a teacher that was pregnant, had to go on leave, and then I became a maths and Sesotho teacher. They're like, what's Sotho? So yeah. So my first lesson, yes, Sotho, the kids were helping me.
Yeah, but I think what's more interesting there is, I mean, like you said, you came home with no job, but you know, you took initiative to actually make something for yourself. Because I've seen a lot of people who sit for 8 months and I don't want to say don't try anything, but are not finding a way to, you know, get themselves out of that slump. So yeah, it's quite impressive that you found.
Thank you.
You found that.
Thank you.
And then you also mentioned entrepreneurship.
Yeah, so I guess even that story, I don't think I was highly, when I speak to other entrepreneurs, like in grade 5, they were selling stuff, or you know, so I don't have that deep history, but I guess that aspect, when I started my mobile, I wasn't making a lot of money, but I was making my own money. I was employing myself. I employed myself. And then soon after, Desert Green was the first startup I worked with. We were trying to build, it was a bit ambitious, but we were trying to like put, our tagline was, we putting an agronomist and an extension officer in the pocket of our youth. So we were going to use cell phones, like, you know, so that we can put production plans, agricultural information, and then target agricultural households with youth. So we could give them steps on how to farm, like literal step by step. And that was quite cool. I went through some incubators and learned a lot already about business, and I got to go to Canada, which was quite cool. Sometimes you can get away with being charming or stuff like that, you know. Use whatever you have at your disposal, because I didn't know anything about business, you know. And then a few years later, I met Sponsor, who has Noseta, and it's a smart irrigation scheduling device. So my mind was blown. I was working for the Stockholm International Water Institute. I had just gotten, I love a lot of things, so I'll just wake up one day and I'll be like, oh, water, that's so interesting, I wanna. So that happened around that time, and then I volunteered at the Stockholm International Water, and then they employed me as an intern. So I was now in the water world, water governance. That was quite cool. And I met Bonzo, and I was like, this is cool, you know. And then I started mixing water and agriculture, and it was a perfect match, because agriculture uses, globally, it uses 70% of all water, and even in South Africa, right? So agriculture is water. It's using most of the water. So so I started volunteering with his startup and learning a lot about irrigation scheduling, water use in agriculture. So that was the second ag tech startup that I would say I was involved in. And even there I got a lot more exposure, pitching, going to stuff, designing also the model, like not the business model, but designing so the hardware he designed, I had to bring in my soil science knowledge on how we're going to deploy that practically. What are we going to measure? What does it mean? What does irrigation scheduling mean? Stuff like that. And now here I am with AgriCool. You know, it's different part of agriculture. It's more the agribusiness, but it's still agtech, still agriculture. So, and like I said before, that wow, the last 6-7 months, yeah. Now I think I understand, and I'm not saying this because I'm a business maverick, but I've gone through like intensive mentorship in terms of financial modeling, business modeling, you know, even like being an operations manager. I manage a team in the field. Things go wrong, cash flow problems. Now I'm in it, you know. So that's my entrepreneurial journey, I would say.
Yeah, but Palesa, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes.
I hope we can do this again sometime.
100%. I enjoyed it so much, and yeah, it's embarrassing that I talk so much, but at least, you know, you gave me a platform.
Yeah, perfect. Bye, everyone.
Bye.